Hello and welcome to your old news update. I'm Izzy Fitz.
And I'm Bud Driscoll.
And we're going to shout out to our sponsors right away. Headley's Clothing, 1829 South 9th.
Woo woo.
Woo woo. And Smoky Hill Museum, 211 West Iron.
Double woo woo.
Double woo woo. Way to go.
Yeah.
Well, Bud, we're going to do something different this time.
No, I hope it's not too shocking for our viewers.
Well, I tell you, our viewers have been calling in wanting to know about this tar party.
Ooh, yeah.
In
Party no one wants to go to.
That's right. And it occurred in 1911, 100 years ago. And I'm going to read a little bit about it, and you can read more about it in the look back section of Monday's Salina Journal.
Can't wait.
Can't wait. There's a lot of good stuff. We've been reading ahead. There's good stuff. So we wrote a story on this a couple years ago.
Cool.
And I'm just going to read you a little excerpt from it.
Okay, that's when you were doing a story on Marlin Fitzwater's book.
Right, former press secretary for President Ronald Reagan, and he had a family member that was involved in this case. Not for good reasons either.
Well, let's listen in.
All right, we got a dateline of Lincoln, a pretty young teacher who spent her summers working at L.V. Green's store in Shady Bend, was guilty only of being friendly. But the wives of the men in this tiny Lincoln County town felt so threatened by Mary Chamberlain that they influenced 15 men and boys to run the Beverly native out of town. In an ambush, August 7, 1911, the men painted the 26-year-old woman with tar.
That's not pleasant.
No, she had done absolutely nothing. It was basically jealousy and gossip, said Shirley Flagg Buchanan of Lincoln. Buchanan spent 4 years researching newspaper reports to compile a true account of the 1911 tar party in Shady Bend, Kansas.
Shady Bend.
At the time of the incident, newspapers around the world carried the story.
I know, and that's something else for a place like this.
That's right. And Chamberlain eventually left town, but not until after 5 months. No, excuse me. After 5 of the 15 attackers were convicted. At least one spent time in jail. Buchanan's great-grandfather, Jim Bowes, was among those implicated, but was eventually cleared of any wrongdoing. And 20 years later, he was elected Lincoln County Sheriff.
Well, there you go.
It was more than 95 years ago, this month.
And he's just
that
retired.
that trial took place in Lincoln County Courthouse. Buchanan, she had worked, when she wrote this book, she worked at Village Lines in Lincoln. It's a Kansas gift store.
Oh.
And store owner Marilyn Helmer, she and Marilyn embarked on the project to provide an accurate account of the happenings that fall.
Wow. Sounds like a good movie.
Yeah, it would be a great movie. It would be. And the assault left Chamberlain emotionally scarred, and she's only had little snippets in books. It was that inspiration behind the book Esther's Pillow, a fictional account of the tar party written by Marlin Fitzwater, an Abilene native and the press secretary for Presidents Ronald Reagan and George Bush Sr.
Well, there you go.
Fitzwater's great uncle Jay Fitzwater was among the men charged in the assault. It was Marlin Fitzwater who promoted Buchanan and Helmer's pursuit of the truth. We encouraged him to write a factual account, but he said he'd be our cheerleader, Helmer said. Fitzwater attended a book signing at Village Line to promote the compilation. What they did was they went through all newspaper articles, and the newspapers from all over covered this story.
I know.
Yeah, and but the article mentioned Buchanan's great-grandfather, whom she knew as a youngster, and he never talked about. Mr. Bowes never talked about that 1911 incident.
Nope, kind of like there's some things you just don't want to talk about.
That's right. Jim Bowes was arrested during the last of the trials, and his father bailed him out of jail for $500. That was a lot of money back then.
Yeah.
While everybody shut up in Shady Bend during that time, the tar party was a big story about everywhere else. The local prosecutor subpoenaed 50 witnesses to testify and threatened to put the wives on the stand.
Oh, God. Don't want to do that.
Yep. Helmer said 2,000 people crammed into the courtroom, and some sold their seats for $1 each during the week-long trial. Others bought their lunch.
It was like that Scopes
They
Monkey
brought their
trial.
lunch, yeah. They hung out of the windows. They had court on Saturday night even.
Wow.
Yeah. There was enough dialogue in the newspaper stories that the trial could be reenacted. Painted by the trial stories as an innocent victim, Chamberlain taught at a local one-room school. She was born and reared in Beverly, about 2 miles from Shady Bend. Chamberlain worked at Green's in Shady Bend during the summer. The store was frequented by farmers and men working at a flour mill near town and on the Union Pacific Railroad. Mary was very jovial, pleasant, and sweet. The men would come in to get their supplies, and she'd laugh and joke with them while she was helping them. Witnesses at the trial reported seeing Chamberlain leaving a railroad worker's tent, and that she was teaching the word was that she was teaching teenage boys more than the 3 R's.
Ooh.
But those
Rambunctiousness?
that's right. Those specifics were not revealed in the newspaper reports. When the men weren't in the field, they were laughing and joking with her. The wives got jealous and wanted her out of town. So their men delivered.
Oh, a note, guys, if you might put this on pause to use, get a snack or something, because this is an Izzy Fitz story.
That's right.
So it's going to last a while.
That's right. A barber from Beverly, Edward Record, served as the decoy, inviting Chamberlain to a fictitious dance in Beverly. While Record drove his date in a horse-drawn buggy, they were held up by the gang. The hedge grove where it occurred still exists. The book cover, a drawing by jewel artist James Davis Nelson, is a depiction of the moment of the attack. Chamberlain's dress was pulled up and her lower extremities were painted with a thick, gooey tar paint, the kind used to paint barns and outbuildings. That didn't harm the young teacher, but the kerosene used to remove the paint damaged her skin. Her clothes were so badly tarred that she had to burn them, but she and her mother found a handkerchief that was used as evidence. Chamberlain reported the violent act to the county attorney, and Record was the first arrested and charged with assault and battery. He gave up the names of everybody else.
Well, yeah, that happens.
The boys, they were 23 or younger and not married, were fined $1 each and testified at the trial.
$1.
Yep, and Jim Bowes was last to be arrested and was eventually able to prove that he was on his way to the hedge grove to stop the attack. In February of 1912, all charges against him were dropped. Village Lines released the book, and they've sold quite a few. One man by the name of Charles Frodsham quoted in this story that he had bought the book and he'd always heard the term tarred and feathered, and I suppose I related it to either the 19th century or the Wild West, to the areas in the country where civilization has not arrived yet. I was a little shocked that it happened in Kansas in 1911. Chamberlain eventually married a Lincoln man, Homer Helfrich, in the fall of 12, and she dated him during the trial.
Wow.
The couple had a son,
ending.
and they lived in Lincoln for several years. And then she eventually worked for a circus. And that couple, they're buried together in East Peoria, Illinois. The tarring, that was an embarrassing episode in Lincoln County history.
I can imagine.
Yep. During the trial, as Union Pacific passenger trains approached Shady Bend, the conductors would announce that the next stop was Tarville. Tarville.
A name you don't want to go down in history.
That's right. But that was big news. That was the O.J. Simpson trial.
The trial of the century.
Yes, it was.
In 1911.
That's right. So there you have it. Read more about the way things used to be in the look back section of Monday's Salina Journal.
And who knows what we'll have for you next week. Just tune in and we'll see you yesterday.